I was like, okay, well, if I can just change like one person's life, that's
Yeah.
the goal. And now it's so beautiful to see women come in all the time. And it's like, I see that transformation right in front of my eyes, within an hour or two. And even getting teary thinking about it, it showed me that like, this is what I need to be doing with my life. Like this is my mission, my purpose.
Meet Miranda Strange, owner and lead photographer of the Boudoir studio. Discover how she's empowering women through confidence and transformational experiences, and why the best businesses don't just serve people, they transform them. Welcome to the Purpose Profit Shift, where real stories about bold shifts illuminate how we can create a new economy. I'm your host, Rachel Bernier-Green, social entrepreneur, activist, and founder of Thrivo Financial Advisory, formerly known as EJ Consortium, a finance consulting firm designed to help purposeful businesses change the world. This episode is brought to you by Thrivo Financial Advisory, where mission-driven founders go when they're ready to stop choosing between profit and purpose. We work with progressive business owners to build financial systems that fund the impact you actually want to make. Cash flow clarity, profit-first structure, and a CFO in your corner who gets why you started this in the first place. Learn more at jointhrivo.com. That's JAOINTHRYVO.com. Today's guest is Miranda Strange, owner and lead photographer at Le Boudoir Studio, an award-winning boudoir photography business in the Phoenix Valley that's built a thriving brand on a deceptively simple idea. Women should feel beautiful for themselves. In an industry that overwhelmingly markets to the male gaze, Miranda made the bold choice to center self-love and empowerment instead. And 4 years and 4 consecutive Best Boudoir Photographer Awards later, she's proven that standing for something is the best business strategy there is. Miranda joins us to talk about how she turned a moment of genuine human connection into a thriving, purpose-driven enterprise. Let's dive in. Miranda, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. It really is an honor.
Oh, I have been so excited to have this conversation because I've always been interested in the idea of boudoir photography, and I always solely seen it marketed to, oh, this is a wonderful gift that you can give to your partner. I very rarely see it marketed under the lens of, this is a beautiful thing that you can do for yourself. So let's dive in and talk about before the studio existed, before, the thousands of women that you have photographed. What was your world like before this calling found you? Were you already in photography, or did this come out of nowhere? Tell us about it.
It kind of came out of nowhere, to be honest.
I love that.
But I have always been a creative my whole life. My background is actually in costume and fashion design.
Oh, cool.
And then I started going into hair and makeup. And so I had spent years in that world, making people look and feel like a little different version of themselves. And so in a lot of ways, that's kind of what I do now, just in a little different context. And so when the opportunity came to take over Le Boudoir Studio, it had felt like everything I'd been doing had a home. It all kind of came
Mhm.
together. And so the studio already had a really incredible 13-year foundation. And I just knew I wanted to build on that in a way that was really intentional and kind of put my own like little spin on it.
I love that. So, as you were kind of getting into this, I know that for some people, boudoir photography can carry a lot of assumptions. So, did you have any thoughts about the industry before you got into it?
I did. So I actually found out about boudoir through pinup. That's kind of again
Oh,
my a bit of my background. Yeah, so
okay.
I viewed it through like that lens, like Betty Page and the more classic historic artistic style.
Yes.
And so I started to do my own shoots in front of the camera and fell in love immediately. It was totally life-changing for me. So when I found out that there was an option for just like more general everyday women, um, it was great. It was great to hear. And that was around like 2019, I would say, when I finally heard about all of this. So I was kind of late to the game too, I guess you could say.
Wow.
Uh,
So walk me
but
through that timeline because that to kind of really have this pique your interest right before the pandemic, how did you go from the kind of being interested to finding this opportunity to actually being the owner of Les Boudoir?
yes. So I was working with a friend doing hair and makeup, and doing operations for her beauty team. And she was actually working with the previous owner doing her clients' hair and makeup. And
Okay.
so previous owner Jody was like, "Hey, do you have anyone that can like help me out? That's really great." And so I got that referral to start working with Jody at Le Boudoir Studio. And so I started just behind the scenes, helping with social media, admin, on the back end of things. And then it all kind of was like this weird timing that it all happened within, the span of just a couple years of, me doing my own shoots, me going on my own confidence journey, getting into the more creative stuff. And so by the time I started working with Jody, um, we just kept that relationship going for the next couple of years. And we got really close. We're very like minded, very similar. And I just started learning more and more about the business naturally. And there came a point that she was like, "Hey, I think you should do this. I think you should, I think you should take over for me." And it definitely caught me off guard. Obviously, I honestly had no intentions of doing photography professionally, even though I had dabbled, just for fun previously. And so it took me a while, to come around to the idea. And, I had always thought at the very least, like, okay, well, maybe I could hire a photographer and I'll just do the hair and makeup, like,
Yeah,
how can I make this work? And the more I learned about it, and then after having my own experiences, it really did feel like perfectly aligned. Like it did feel like the right opportunity. And I think sometimes, they come our way, when we least expect it, and a door
true.
opened, and I feel like I had to, at least try it, at least go down that path and see, what would happen.
So it sounds like you were a little bit of an unexpected business owner, that was not something that you originally envisioned for yourself. And so, as you were kind of getting into this entrepreneurial journey, did you see a gap between what other studios were offering and what women actually needed? And tell us a little bit more about how you kind of landed on your niche.
Yes, definitely. So the more I learned about boudoir and the whole entire experience and, just doing my research with other photographers, getting in education groups, Facebook groups, kind of learning as much as I could, there's definitely I would say like kind of a few different ways to go about it. Of course, everyone can run their own business in their own ways, which is wonderful. But there's definitely a lot of promotion or marketing around, like you mentioned before, the
Absolutely.
gift giving, doing this for someone else, and also just doing more of a quantity versus quality, like a high volume studio.
Yeah.
And so I was examining all of these options and kind of seeing where I wanted to take things. And I will say after, the pandemic, like those were kind of like unicorn years, we call them in the industry. Like, people were coming in left and right. We were
Oh,
waking up to
really?
bookings. Like, yeah, it was crazy. Because we thought, the opposite was gonna was gonna happen. But I think people realized, okay, well, I better do this. It's kind of now or never, and it was just like the perfect kind of storm for that situation. But after, especially and when I took over, we definitely noticed kind of a change in the market.
Okay.
And even though more people knew about it, I think people were still really hesitant on doing this experience.
Yeah.
And so because of my personal experience with it, I wanted to focus more on the client transformation part of it and then just getting to know my clients on a deeper level and having more meaningful relationships with them even before they step into the studio. And so that was going to be my focus going forward is how do I make this more about my actual client, positioning it and offering it as doing it for themselves, and
Yeah.
just seeing how powerful it can be just doing it for you. Because at the end of the day, it's your experience. You're coming in to do this, they're pictures of you. And regardless if you're giving it to someone else, you're going to have that with you for the rest of your life. So I think the emphasis just naturally was put on being more towards the client, of course.
And I love that. And because there's so much pressure on um, women just in the day to day around how we appear for really for the patriarchy and not really how we appear for ourselves and what we do to make ourselves feel beautiful um, outside, even if we're sitting at home by ourselves, just so that when we look in the mirror, that we're happy about what we see and that we think that we are beautiful. And you've talked about a pivotal moment early on when one of your first clients just said that to you, and she talked about how you made her feel so beautiful. And for some women, that might be the first time that they are really looking at themselves in that light. So, what kind of shifted in you when you heard those words? And did that change how you felt about how meaningful your work is for some women?
Yeah, it's a powerful moment when you hear that from someone. And it's funny because before I got into it, I kind of thought I was the only one dealing with like being self-conscious or like
Hmm.
because I was born with, a facial difference. And so I've always been very aware of that. And so I was like, everyone else probably doesn't even think about this. They're just going on with their
Oh,
lives. Everyone's so beautiful. And then I get to meet these women and they're like, oh, I don't like XYZ. I don't like being in front of
mm,
the camera. I haven't felt this way in years or ever. And I'm like, okay, everyone, this is kind of an
it's
epidemic here.
hard.
Like
Yeah.
everyone does have, some sort of feelings about themselves. And you're right, like it's a lot of societal pressures, patriarchal pressures. And so hearing that from someone, I just knew that this was more than just like photos or, pretty pictures. This was a much deeper experience, a much more
Yeah.
transformative experience. Like I said, that had that effect on me as well. And so I was like, okay, well, if I can just change like one person's life, that's
Yeah.
the goal. And now it's so beautiful to see women come in all the time. And it's like they have that, I see that transformation right in front of my eyes, within an hour or two, and even getting teary thinking about it. um, and it just, it showed me that like this is what I need to be doing with my life. Like this is my mission, my purpose.
But I can tell from listening to you just how important the work that you do is and how transformative it has been for your clients. And so, can you tell me a little bit about how potential clients have responded when you positioned boudoir as something a woman does for herself, and how that messaging kind of resonates with them?
Yeah, and it's honestly been really beautiful, Rachel. This past couple of years, I've seen more and more women when they inquire and reach out, they're like, "Hey, I'm doing this for me," or "I'm doing this just because." And it's really cool to see that switch, from the gift to, having that focus be back on themselves as it should be. I always make it a point, when I talk to people during like our consult calls, I'm like, this is for you first and foremost. It might be a gift, it might not, but just so you know, this is the mindset we're going to go in with. And so it's wonderful to see. I think people really appreciate that. Just having that different kind of shift and focus. And it has allowed me to really connect with my clients, like I said, on a deeper level. We
Yeah.
do in-person events. A lot of my clients have actually become friends and we'll go grab coffee, and do all kinds of other things. And that's what I really wanted for the business. So it's really just wonderful to see it happen.
So, one of the things that I have been wondering is because we're so often told that when you do things in a way that is counter to the prominent narrative, that there is a financial cost to it. And sometimes that's the case, but sometimes it's not. So, was there a financial cost early on to kind of rejecting the industry's default marketing playbook when you chose to kind of position yourself differently? Or did you see it kind of resonate with people right away?
It's kind of I can't put like a definitive finger on it, but
Hmm.
the idea of the gift giving, I mean, it as marketing, like it works, it definitely works.
Yeah.
uh, and it's definitely proven. And so I think it has maybe created a little bit more hesitation in my clients initially, just because there are still people coming in for anniversary gifts or wedding gifts, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love that. And so I think it kind of makes it an easier yes for them, to come in and do
Yeah.
that when it's for someone else. And so I feel like there has been a little bit of a pushback and just, a little bit more of a challenge to um, kind of not necessarily convince, but like warm people up to the idea that
Yeah.
this can be just for you. You can be selfish and do that. You don't have to have
Yeah.
any reason to do this. And so I think just with the market change and the kind of our specific messaging, there's definitely been some changes in the past like couple of years for that. But I know that the people that come in now truly like are my clients,
Yeah.
like my soul clients, because
Yeah.
we had that connection like pretty much early on, and then that transformation and that experience is just so much more powerful. And I'd rather have less clients that get it, that understand, and appreciate the artistic side of it and the investment and just
Yeah.
the whole experience as itself, rather than just, getting people in and out the door that necessarily may not have as big of an impact or don't appreciate it. And so there's photographers for that, right? I
Right.
always say it's just as important for clients to choose the right photographers for photographers to have the right clients. And so I just make it very clear my messaging, like this is what I do, this is what I stand for, this is what I'm about, and if that resonates for you, wonderful. And if not,
Yeah.
there's other options. It's okay. So
That's so true. And one of the things that was coming to mind as I was listening to you talk about that, about how it is that the marketing works when you're doing something as a gift. I think part of that is because we've been pretty heavily conditioned, like, and you even said the word selfish, that it's selfish if we make, an investment in doing something that is just for ourselves, that the sole purpose of it is to make ourselves happy. And so that there is kind of the work that you're doing is running counter narrative to that idea that it's actually okay to prioritize yourself sometimes. It's okay to do things just because they bring you joy, and that you don't always have to be the carer and the giver where you can only spend money or splurge on things that are for someone else.
yeah. And I see that still all the time, and so I'm like, okay, there's still more work to be done,
Yeah.
you know? Um, yeah, I really just want women to see that like you're pouring into yourself so you can give back to others. We definitely deserve to feel good and look good about ourselves. And I like kind of like to frame it as like some people buy like designer bags or they go on like fancy vacations, and some people choose to
Hmm.
do this. And
Yeah.
it's just a different form of that investment in self care.
Yes. And you have described your sessions as the supermodel experience because there's professional hair and makeup and expert posing guidance, which was something that stuck out to me because, like, I never know what to do with myself. That you have like a fully designed environment. So, that is like a huge operational investment in trying to really cultivate an experience for someone so that they get the physical pictures, but they also are creating kind of epic memories with the way that you go about this. And you've talked about having a pretty lean team. So, how do you consistently deliver that level of transformation and experience for your clients?
Yes. And my team makes all the difference for these sessions. Like my hair and makeup artist had been working for the company, I think for about like 9 years or so before I took
Okay.
over. So I absolutely begged her to stay. And I'm so happy she did. And I have had a few assistants throughout the years helping me during sessions, and they've all had their own sessions first. So they know what it's like to
I
be in
love
front of the
that.
camera, how the day goes, what I look for. And so when you have multiple hands part of a vulnerable and intimate experience, the energy needs to be right. And so
Right.
I don't bring on just anyone. And I feel very lucky to work with the women who believe in this experience as deeply as I do.
I love that. It
Yeah.
is a beautiful thing to have a team that is just bought into the work that you're doing. And you just mentioned that you had a few different VAs or assistants that you work with. So I would love to know about the hiring process. How do you hire for the business when the product is really how someone feels? That's like a really high touch thing to hire for.
Yeah. It is, I guess, for me, because it's such a personal situation, um, it's not necessarily like a very HR, corporate coded process. But obviously I do vet and make sure that the people I do bring in, I can trust, that bring that energy that I'm looking for, that bring that calm and just ability to handle kind of any emotions or questions
Hmm.
or any kind of situations that happen. Everyone that does end up working for me, I've already worked with in some capacity.
Okay.
So if I do need to bring in like a different hair and makeup artist, I've already worked with them outside of the photography space. So I know how they work with clients and I can see them firsthand and I can see their work and how they handle feedback and changes and all of
Uh-huh.
that. And then my assistants again, like they've all been my clients. And I've known them for a couple of years. And so I feel that they're able to adapt to that space again, like on the other side. And so right now I haven't found a new in-person assistant yet. So I am keeping my eyes and options open. And I feel like once I find the right fit, I'll kind of just know.
Yeah.
And yes, I think just keeping it leaner on my end overall is honestly the best for my clients because
Okay.
sometimes they're like, oh, is it just going to be me and you in the session? And so they don't really want a lot of people involved. They don't want
That
10
makes
eyes
sense.
on them while they're getting in this state. And so I like to keep it very, very small, very intimate through the whole process just to make sure that they're feeling safe and comfortable.
That makes a lot of sense because, as you know, both know women tend to be their own worst critics. And, that is shaped by media and what people have told them, by their own distorted self image. And that means that clients are often probably coming in, they're carrying years of that weight. And you mentioned that your assistants and your team, they need to be ready for whatever emotions come up. So, what does it take to kind of hold space for that kind of vulnerability? Um, because you are in a photography business and you're in a business for profit, but sometimes I imagine shoots don't go according to plan because people are just having overwhelming emotional responses to this transformation.
That's so true. Every session is totally different and you never know what's going to happen. And so for me, it's about being really clear on our process so that clients do feel safe and being equally
Mhm.
clear with myself and my team about what we're here to do. So we do block off an entire day for clients and we only take one session a day. So we are very much,
I love that.
quality versus quantity, as I mentioned before. We have a full 2 hours for hair and makeup so they can get the look they want. My artist and I can be with them the entire time, just talking to them, letting their nerves relax. They feel truly pampered and never rushed.
Yeah.
And I take my time going through the outfits they brought, helping them work through what they really want to highlight and showcase during the session. And then when it comes to the shoot itself, again, we're all about taking time. So I typically spend an hour to 2 hours, sometimes more, walk with them walking through every single pose, giving them space to play and explore motions, try things. This is not the time to be rushed and treated like a
Yeah.
number. It's a very
Right.
delicate process, and I have to be ready for all kinds of emotions that that do come out. So with me being there through the entire process, guiding them, I think allows them to hopefully let down their walls and be fully immersed. And ultimately, I think when you show people you really care, when they are treated right and you put the client first, they recognize that and you're rewarded in your business.
It kind of reminds me of the Disney experience, about how intentional Disney is about how their guests experience their parks and attractions and things. That every piece of it is kind of curated to provide an experience that really leaves a mark on the guest.
Yes. Yes, you're so right. That's a good comparison.
Yeah. And do you think that your approach to how you plan out your sessions, even the fact that you're like spending an entire day with clients, do you think that part of that approach is different because you didn't come from a business background where people maybe are like hyper fixated on efficiency and how many clients they can fit into a day instead of providing that quality experience?
I think you might be onto something there. I think just as a creative, it's always been more about like the process and the outcome, and not the financial side of it. I'm not thinking about, profits or how much can I charge for this. It's kind of just like I just want to do this because I love doing it. And if I get to
Yeah.
make money, like it's a bonus. And so I think, yeah, I never really thought about it that way actually, but I think just coming from that kind of background, and I will say it's kind of been a struggle, like I have to have multiple reality checks, about a business standpoint, of making sure that, of course, I am still profitable to be able to provide the experience that I want to provide.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it's just something that my in my nature, just being very um I care a lot about what I do, and that's more important than the financial side of it for me.
So let's talk about that a little bit because you're in this incredible place where the demand for what you do is clearly there. And so you're in a place that a lot of, purpose driven founders dream about where they can work with, like you said, your soul clients. And in that, but you also, did not set out to be a business owner. And so you now not only get to do what you love, but you do also have all of these other tasks that come with kind of running the business. So what is what you say is a pressing like financial or operational challenge at Le Boudoir Studio that you're excited to improve moving forward?
Yes. So right now, our big focus is getting leads, so new clients in the door. Because a lot of clients that I've had, they do come back for multiple sessions, which is great. But then some people are like, "This is a one-time thing. Like, I'm good. I've
That
had
makes
my,"
sense. Yeah.
and so there's also just the aspect of like referrals. We love our referrals, and I'm very
Hmm.
thankful to get those, but I feel like it's still a little I guess, like, taboo is, like, kinda like the best word, I feel like, to
That's fair.
explain it, but, people are not everyone's gonna be like, "Look what I did, you should look at my images, and you should do this," and so I think the referral side is still it's a little bit, slower than I would like, 'cause I think everyone should do this at least once,
Yeah.
so, yeah, just getting people in the door and then showing them what kind of experience this is, what we do here, what this is all about has been kind of like the biggest challenge, I would say. Never stop marketing, always put your name out there. So that's been my focus this year in particular. We are doing like Facebook ads and Instagram ads, and those have been wonderful. Again, I'm meeting it's just the right clients end up finding you somehow, and it's beautiful. And so that's been working really well. Obviously, that comes at a cost, for the ad spend, and then I do have an ads manager and a business coach that I'm working with on this, to kind of navigate that process since this is like a new marketing venture for me.
Hmm.
Uh, so I do have to be aware of that, and we've had to make some changes, in the business to kind of accommodate, these cold leads that have maybe never really heard about Boudoir or haven't heard about
Oh,
me
good point.
specifically. And so obviously with this intimate experience, a vulnerable experience, and having a decent investment, that is going to be made into it, there is some back end work that really needs to be done. And so I'm learning a lot. It's been a fun challenge, but it's been working well.
That sounds like it sounds like you, one, have identified like something that is really exciting to improve. And then I love that you have the ads manager and a business coach. So you brought in support and recognize, hey, I'm outside of my wheelhouse here. I'm going to find some people to help guide me through it as we kind of embark on this new thing. And also that really important part about nurturing those leads, because I think a lot of small business owners, sometimes they think, build it and they will come, and that is kind of the end of their marketing strategy. Or they have this idea that if they run an ad and someone sees it, that someone will buy something at that first opportunity. And sales psychology actually tells us that people typically they have to engage with us 7 to 8 times in meaningful ways before they're ready to entertain the idea of buying sometimes, depending on what your service is. And so, really shifting our expectations as small business owners about what it looks like to actually grow our businesses and nurture those leads, it's so critical. So I'm glad you flagged that.
Yes, all great points. Yes, and I've learned, it's just constant pivoting. Being a business owner, you just have to keep changing, trying new things, keep at it. What worked a couple years ago might not work right now, so you always have to be ready for
Yeah.
market changes and just being willing to adapt and learn and grow.
What would you say, because I'm just curious now, that as a business owner who did not, aspire to be a business owner at first, what's been the most surprising thing about entrepreneurship for you?
I just think how much goes into it. Um,
Mm, that's very
uh,
valid.
we joke, especially like in the photography industry, it's like photography is like 10% of the job, and like the 90% is just
Yeah.
all the back end, work that we have to do. And so I think that kind of surprised me just how much there is and how much you can do. Like there's always work, there's always something to add in, to improve, to, upgrade or try. And it's just constant. And so for me, like having a VA now is so helpful because that takes, a little bit off the plate,
Yeah.
and just having those automated processes. So I'm trying to really focus on the business side and get better at that and just having a more systematic process to help ease that back end workload. And so I can focus more on, having conversations with those leads, like doing phone
Yes.
calls, just getting down to like the more personal connections that is so important for me and for my business. So that's yeah, definitely was like I said, a reality check for me.
Yeah, because we talk so much. I feel like for entrepreneurship to be something that is so glorified in American culture, that so much of the conversation centers around the perks and the fun and the doing what you love. And people are not, out here making social media posts about all of the time that they're spending in their books or figuring out if their pricing is correct or, you know, uh, making those phone calls to nurture the leads or all of those other pieces. And I think it really does people a disservice because then they start a business and they're like, wait a minute, I didn't actually want to do any of these things.
Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of people they just don't know. And so I
Yeah.
try to have grace, with like potential clients that just, especially when it comes to cost, that's, I feel like one of the biggest hesitations for something like this is, oh, I didn't realize how much it would cost. And it's like,
Yeah.
when you try to explain, everything that I'm doing for them, including, and then just our experience, our reputation, everything else that's bundled into it, and I feel like some things shouldn't be cheap, you know? Um, you
That is
definitely
so
want
true.
that quality. And so, I try to be conscious about, the reality of some situations. And like, we have, like I said, made some changes in our business this year to, bring in, some new people and kind of just give them a little sample of the experience, But yeah, so much goes into it, and you can really tell who's never been a business owner before. Um,
Right.
it's really hard to, kind of communicate all of that, and not that everyone should know, what goes in on the back
Yeah,
end, but it is something to just be aware of. It's not as easy as
right.
people make it out to be. It's definitely not glamorous, most of the time, and it's not for everyone, but I
That
do
is
love it.
very true. But I do wanna, like, scream that part from the rooftops that not everything should be cheap, because a lot of times I think people don't recognize what the true cost of a cheap service is, because if your services were cheap, then that would mean that you would have to underpay the people that are on your team building these beautiful experiences. It would mean that you couldn't invest in having, a full production day dedicated to a single client. There's so many things that when I think when people are conditioned to just want a cheap price, that they don't really think about cheap at what cost. Like, what is happening downstream for me to get this experience at a lower price point?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a good point because especially with, boudoir, it's like it is you're dealing with people's confidence, and their body
Mhm.
image. And so it can be a beautiful experience and it can have a beautiful outcome. They can be more confident and have a new appreciation for their body, or it can go the other way. It can just
Mhm.
ingrain that idea that they've had when they first came in. And so it's not something that should be taken lightly. It's not something that just anyone can do.
Right.
There's definitely specific techniques with posing and angles, but then also just the communication and, how you talk to your client, how you guide them, the space that you create for them. It's multiple things to really have a positive experience.
That is so critical. And I hope that people listening really take that away. And one of the things that I've wondered as you've talked about, like how meaningful this work is that you're doing, how do you, and you're also talking about, running the ads and being intentional about growing the business. Have you thought about how you are going to keep kind of your mission front and center as the business grows and those other operational demands increase?
Yes, absolutely. Um, because when I started doing the ads, I saw other photographers, and what they were doing and how much they were making and how many sessions they were doing. And I was like, that sounds great in theory, but it's just not for me. I
Yes.
I am not going to become a volume studio. I have, a certain number of sessions that I can realistically take every month, just to be able to, like I said, block off the day, still do, editing and all of the back end stuff without
Right.
me being burnt out. And so I have been sticking to that cap, just creating that boundary for myself and for my clients, and really relying on those systems on the back end to just be able to handle, the volume. And there is a really wonderful process that we have created to kind of help us find, those qualified clients that are ready to come in. So that way I am focusing my energy on those people first, um, and kind of meeting them where they're at, and then, nurturing them more up until they come into the session itself. But yes, I definitely have boundaries in place to still have my mission front and center. I'm
Yeah.
not willing to sacrifice that. And then just continuing to nurture them through other methods. So I have a private Facebook group, and that's with like current clients, past clients, future clients, and it's just a nice little private hub where, I share confidence tips and behind the scenes and, yeah, our events that we do in person together. And so it's a nice little safe space, and that really helps warm up people if they're still looking, on the sidelines for a little while. It's been a great resource. But yeah, definitely that's not going to change for me. It's just, I feel like it comes down to like just who I am as a person. I can't
Mhm.
envision myself, you know, doing that kind of volume or that kind of consumer style at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, it doesn't feel like me. So,
That's a really refreshing perspective when we are in like a society where it just feels like everyone is pushed to grow, 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 and grow as fast as you can. And, I've even had this conversation with some marketing firms that have reached out to us because the type of funnels that they're trying to build would cause us to grow a lot faster than we desire to grow because we want to be able to, we're focused on the experience that we provide to our clients. And we know that we can't sustain that if we exceed a certain pace of growth. There's this book I love called Small Giants, and it talks about the kind of beauty and purpose. And it actually, there's an entire Small Giants community, and they have conferences and everything. But they talk about the beauty and power in choosing the best size for your business and then just aiming for excellence at that size instead of focusing on growth, which I think is such an underlooked topic because most people think that, they hear if you're not growing, you're failing. And that's not true. You can grow in ways outside of size. You can grow your revenue and stay the same size. There are different things that you can do. You can deliver better service. You can improve your retention. There's so much growth that can happen without necessarily scaling your company that I feel like gets missed in the entrepreneurial conversation, especially in, this hustle and grind culture.
I do agree. Absolutely. And I saw it too when I was first starting. I joined these, Facebook groups and education groups, and everyone was just like, you can charge this right out of the beginning and you can make, six figures and in a year, and this is how you do it, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like that again, that sounds great, right? But
Yeah.
then you have to go on the back end and I'd rather deliver a really beautiful experience to someone that I know I did my best work, I guided them through everything, they had a great time, and if they only spend, you know, get my smallest package, but they're gonna have a good experience the rest of their life, I'm okay with that. Like, I'd rather, have that approach than, getting, like, 10 people in the door for and just not delivering my best work because I'm so
Yeah.
hard on myself. I do care, like I said, I care a lot about my work, and I want to walk away feeling good, um, not in like a selfish way, but I want to feel
Right.
good about what I'm doing. If I'm going to keep doing it because and word gets around. Like
Yeah.
we have a really wonderful reputation, and it didn't come from just treating clients like a number.
Mhm.
It's something that we've built up, and it takes a long time to build that reputation up, and I'm not here to undo that for any
Yeah.
cost, you know? That'll go a lot farther than any amount of money.
That is so true. That is so true. So, one thing I always love to ask people is if you could go back and talk to the Miranda who was just starting out and who hadn't heard all of the wonderful things that clients have said to you these days, what would you tell her about what she's about to build?
I think I tell her to trust her instinct with this
Hmm.
work matters.
Yeah.
There'll definitely be moments if, you wonder if the market wants what you're offering or if you should just do what everyone else is doing because it's easier. And I would say don't. Um, the women who need this are out there and they're waiting for someone that sees them the way that you do. And so build it for
Yeah.
them and the business will follow.
I love that. Yeah, you found a true need and focused on building a business around catering to that need in a market that simply wasn't doing that. Uh, and what do you wish more entrepreneurs understood about building a business around transformation rather than transactions? Because every time you've described the work you do, you've talked about the transformative experience and never said have referred to it by just like sessions or clients. It's always about the transformation.
Well, it's funny because the more I read about business and marketing, the more I learn that people will actually pay a lot for transformational,
Yeah,
products and services. So I was like, well, maybe I was onto something
I
early
think you
on,
are.
but it is true. Yeah, gosh, let me see how to phrase this. I think a lot of it does have to do with just my personal experience with it, and I really kind of use that as, of course, my why is so important in talking to clients and what I do. Um, and so just trying to frame it, yeah, it's not just come in front of the camera for 15 minutes, let me take some quick photos, and you're out the
Right.
door. I put so much emphasis on the experience part because clients have told me, personally in the reviews that that's their favorite part. They love coming in for the experience. Like the
Yeah.
pictures are great, but like they love coming in to get their hair and makeup done. Sometimes they've never had their hair and makeup done before. They love getting to wear, beautiful and fun outfits that maybe just
Yeah.
sit in their drawer for years that they don't even touch. And just having like a day for themselves, a couple hours for themselves. I like to tell people it's just like a fun girls' day. We're just gonna be hanging out. That's a little
Yeah.
party. And when do we get to do that in our everyday lives, you know?
Yes.
And so yeah, the experience is everything. The transform it's you can't have like for me, it's like you can't have one without the other.
Mhm.
They definitely go hand in hand to provide that.
I really wish more business owners shared that sentiment. Yeah, that the transformation is everything. And as we're winding up today, one thing that you said as I was researching for this episode that I loved is that a woman who loves herself is an unstoppable force. So, after a couple years of witnessing that, what has it taught you about yourself?
Here I go again. Um,
I've cried on the podcast several times, so it
I
happens.
am sorry. I cry at everything. Um, yeah, it just shows me what's possible. Like,
Mm,
um, I wanted to become this version of myself for so long, and like seeing me go through it with all of my like personal issues that I've had to work through, and then being able to just, like I said, give that gift to someone else and watch them,
yeah,
you know, basically like live to their fullest potential. Like that's what I want. Like I feel like we've been pushed down a lot. We've been told a lot of things to keep us down, to keep us small. And
yeah.
getting into boudoir and like pinup, and I do burlesque as well. And so there's a
Oh,
lot of
cool.
overlap in those communities, and it's just really cool to see women, like, doing their thing and being proud of themselves and their bodies and being confident and, um, just living life to the fullest, like, that's how we should all be, like, there's no
Yeah.
reason not to. I think it's just a lot of rewiring and undoing, that
Yes.
obviously needs to happen for a lot of people, but hopefully this can be like one small step towards that direction, and it's just really cool to watch clients, like I said, long after their session, see them, you know, apply for another job or, go
Mm,
after a relationship or started doing all these other fun things they've talked about doing for forever, but never actually,
yeah.
took the time to do, because they were too scared or what have you. So it's just beautiful to watch women bloom and just become a more powerful, confident version of themselves. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. What a beautiful answer and an amazing way to wind down this conversation. And I'm, yeah, sad that I have to follow that with an outro because you just kind of beautifully wrapped up this conversation and the purpose of your work. And for everyone listening, Miranda, how can they find out more about you and the work that you do and potentially book with you?
Yes. So we are on all of the platforms. It's Le Boudoir Studio, LE space Boudoir space studio, the Boudoir Studio. And we're on our website is the main point of contact. There is a contact form on there, and you can see all of our work and what our experience includes. We're on Instagram, Facebook. Join our VIP Facebook group if you are a woman interested in doing this. That way you can get a little sneak peek and be amongst other like-minded women who have or are thinking about doing this as well. So those would be the points of contact. I would love to see you all there.
Amazing. Well, everyone, that was an amazing conversation with Miranda Strange. She has shown us how her choice to center self love and empowerment in the boudoir space is helping her to build a small giant of a company and uh, really focus on the transformative and empowering experiences that she's delivering to her clients. And I hope that that leaves all of us uh, with inspiration to think about how we can pour into our clients, how we can create more transformation, how we can empower people through our work. And Miranda, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much.
As always, if this conversation resonated with you, here's what you can do. Subscribe to the Purpose Profit Shift wherever you listen to podcasts. We've got episodes dropping regularly with more visionary founders and changemakers who are reshaping how business gets done. And if you found value in today's episode, leave us a rating and review. It helps other values-driven leaders find us. Until next time, keep leading with intention, scaling responsibly, and building businesses that matter. I'm Rachel Brunier Green, and this is the Purpose Profit Shift.